Hey everyone, back again with another video, and I'm going to do something different in this video than I normally do in other videos. So instead of discussing a specific topic or talking about a group of specific cards, I've decided to focus on one specific card that I feel caused a huge shift in Yu-Gi-Oh's history in terms of how you play. And the card I'm going to focus on today is a card that is no longer relevant, but was unbelievably powerful at one point. And the card I'm going to focus on is called Gorz, the Emissary of Darkness. And I'm choosing to focus on it since it was one of the most feared cards at one point, and I feel like it's worth discussing since it did cause a huge warp in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. So, a little intro for those of you who don't know much about Gorz, the Emissary of Darkness. So, it was released back in 2008 in the set called Dark Legends, and it's a level 7 Dark Fiend type monster with 2,700 attack and 2,500 defense. And it had an effect which allows you to summon Gorz from the hand when you take damage from a card in your opponent's possession, and you must control no cards to activate and resolve this effect. And if summoned this way, you can activate one of the following appropriate effects based on the damage. So if it's battle damage, you get to special summon one Emissary of Darkness token whose attack and defense is equal to the amount of battle damage you took. However, if it's an effect damage, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the amount of damage you took. So that was a bit of an introduction to Gorz, the Emissary of Darkness, for those of you who didn't know. But now we get into the reason why Gorz was so format and game warping. So it was because it allowed you to summon a strong token onto the battlefield, which allowed you to rebound if your opponent attacked you with their boss monster or a very high attack point monster, especially if it's a direct attack. And it allowed you to have a token with the same attack as the monster that had just attacked you, where you could then use it to attack a problematic high attack point monster with the token you had just gotten, and you could then swoop in with Gorz for a direct attack on your opponent, or attack one of your opponent's monsters with less attack than Gorz itself. And you could even use a destruction / board wipe effect to get rid of the monster that had just attacked you, which would leave you with an extremely powerful Gorz token and Gorz monster to attack with, which enabled KOs. And even if you didn't get a direct attack with Gorz or the token, you could potentially keep the token around to essentially beat down your opponent's smaller monsters, which were likely not as strong. And Gorz itself was also very formidable in terms of attack in general, especially since it was able to attack over Stardust Dragon, which was a big deal back then, since Stardust Dragon was very meta-defining, and it was back in the day and age where battle-oriented terms were not very commonplace. And what I mean by this is that not many destruction effects happened during the main phase, they mainly happened during the battle phase, which allowed boss monsters like Gorz to remain on the field and be an obstacle to your opponent, since they had to draw out your monster to attack them in order to destroy them for the most part. And furthermore, a token also allowed you to make unique synchro plays such as level 9 or above synchros, especially with level 1 tuners, since you were able to synchro summon with a token or Gorz itself so that you can make a synchro power play to kick off other combos or extend your strategy. And if that wasn't good enough, Gorz further covered all of the bases by allowing you to dish out effect damage if your opponent activated burn effect damage on you. So, what's also great too is that if you whittled your opponent's life points down far enough, it could make your opponent second guess whether or not they should activate a burn effect on you. But what truly made Gorz a meta warping card and warp the game in Yu-Gi-Oh in general was because it could summon a powerful token in the way it did. and it essentially made your opponent think twice about whether they should attack you with their strongest monster first, since they were afraid of creating a potentially extremely powerful Gorz token, which in turn could break their board. In response, people had to attack with their weakest monsters first, since they were afraid of having Gorz dropped on them, which would in turn create a powerful Gorz token. And by attacking with their weakest monsters first, they could attempt to deal as much damage as they could on you before they attacked with their strongest monster, which in turn would create the Gorz token. So this single card warped a format and a game, since people had to change their strategy from trying to end the game with the strong monster attacks, and it forced people to strategize and think more carefully about the way they attacked first, since it hadn't really been thought of in this way before, at least not too much. So this whole change in strategy eventually came to be known as Gorz format, since Gorz was not just a card to fear, but it was a card to change your strategy around in general, and which in turn changed the way you played the game at that moment. And that's what I really enjoyed most about Gorz format. The new level of strategy created by a single card was what I found to be one of the most enjoyable aspects of the particular format. And the other element that was also enjoyable to me was the presence of the Gorz token, which allowed you to put a snag in your opponent's strategy while also allowing you to have another monster on board to create follow-up plays with, and combos of your own, which were often synchro plays, which I personally used to make a lot of synchros like Stardust Dragon, and if you don't know in general, I love performing synchro summons, so that added to the overall enjoyability. And while Gorz format eventually fizzled out primarily because of the rise of more frequent destruction and bounce effects, I can't help but appreciate the change in strategy that Gorz brought to the table, which cements Gorz format as one of the most memorable formats to me, since it's kind of like a small little time capsule that I look back to, which I fondly remember because of the interesting strategy that one card created. But yeah, that's basically been my thoughts on the topic, and if you would like to support more content like this, you can do so at my Patreon down below. I normally link it down in the description below, and it's at the Necromancer1040 Patreon link, and you can check it out along with a lot of other things I normally post down there, which allows you to keep up with the content I make and just all other neat things I usually post down there below. But with that, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I appreciate any support you guys give me in general, whether it's just sitting there watching the video or just enjoying it all together. I really appreciate everything you guys support me in, and thank you so much. I'll catch you in the next one. Alright, take care.